Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I'm excited, man. We've been talking back and forth for a while, but Brandon Rumbaugh, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, my man. It's been good. You got a lot going on. Yeah, new dad.
New business, new life. I mean, it's crazy. It seems like everything kind of happened in the last 2 or 3 months, and it's like, you know what? If I'm going to do one thing, why not just do it all?
Do it, man. Let's
I
do
know.
it.
So we kind of just jumped in and really went after all aspects of life. Family, business, relationships, everything. I kind of just jumped at everything all at once, and it's a challenge, but we're taking everything day by day.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, just like on every Circuit of Success show, we always have our guests talk about what's made them the man they are today, and would love to hear your story. You've got an amazing story, and you're doing great things with an amazing story. So, but what has made you the man you are today?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Well, people can't see this, the listeners, whether they're just listening or they're going to be watching, either way, they're not going to be able to see, what made me the man that I am today. From the chest up, I look like a normal person. And still to this day, people even tell me, they've been friends with me, for the past 6, 7 years of my life. And they tell me they don't look at me any differently, even though I am different from most people, just because, I try not to lean on that too much. I lost both of my legs in Afghanistan in 2010. And, the experiences that I had in Afghanistan from, the time I got there, September 2010, to the time that I got hurt, November 29, 2010, really made me into the man that I am today. So it wasn't necessarily one, instance in particular. It was kind of a bunch of things that unfolded over those 3 months that really, led me into this direction of my life. And I'll kind of start, from the beginning. So even before the Marine Corps, I talk about this, I speak all over the country, sometimes outside of the country. I've had a few opportunities to speak outside of the country, all over the world. And, I start with my time before the Marine Corps. And really where it starts is, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 15 years old. And,
Wow.
You would hear that story a lot from your grandparents or people that grew up in the 1900s to the
Right.
19, it wasn't a big deal. We had different people back then. People didn't complain. People were tough. People went to war and came home and didn't talk about it. They didn't want any recognition. There was different people back then. So for me to talk about this now, people don't think that this stuff still happens. In 2005, I moved out of my parents' house at the age of 15 and moved an hour away and bounced around from home to home, from friend to friend that I met along the way, and still managed to, graduate from high school. And I graduated high school and, wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And in 2007, I really didn't understand how the whole college process worked. As crazy as that sounds, I didn't understand what, a FAFSA was, what student aid was. I didn't know what, didn't understand how tuition worked and, room and board and, that you had to buy your own books and do all those things. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
It's just, in my world growing up, I knew what pretty much all the, any drug was. I knew what alcohol was. I knew about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about, the other.
And what
things.
part of the country was this? Where were you from?
So I grew up in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. It's
Okay.
a small town in Fayette County, about 40 miles south of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So 40 miles south of Pittsburgh. And I don't know if you're familiar with Morgantown, West Virginia, where West Virginia University is.
Yeah.
I'm about 20 minutes from there.
Okay.
So I'm 20 minutes north of there. So right on the PA, West Virginia border. And, I'm not, I don't tell people this because I don't want them to feel bad for me. And I'm not really putting blame on my parents or, it is what it is. Even at 15 years old, I still had control of my life to make decisions. So I can't solely put the blame on my parents, for the way that I was brought up and the things that had happened.
Sure.
At some point we all have control, and we really have control from 18 on. So, like I said, I'm not telling you this to make my parents look like horrible people. They had their own life. They did their own thing. It is what it is. My life happened the way that it happened, and I wouldn't change it for anything because it made me out to be what I am today.
So what do you think that'll do for you as a dad? I mean, when you look at your little baby now, and I've seen you with the pictures, a precious little baby, what's that change, you think?
And once again, this is going to might sound a little harsh, but growing up, I found out what not to do. So I know everything not to do with my child. And to me, that's just as important as, learning the right thing to do, understanding what the wrong things are too, because you've been there, you've done that, you know what not to do. You don't have to make those same mistakes. So I feel like I'm set up and I'm in a position to where I really know what I need to do, and I just have to do it. It's as simple as putting those things into place and putting them into Remy's life, and making sure that she has every opportunity that she needs to be successful, that she has somebody that cares for her, that she has the right tools in front of her, that she has somebody teaching her not just how to act, but teaching her about life and what's going to come, and understanding that it's not going to be easy. And if life is easy, then you're not doing something. Life could be hard. Like, people think that life should be easy. Like, they think that if you're super successful and you have all this money and you're rich, that life is so easy, not realizing that the most successful people in the world are the most stressed out people in the world on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
I don't know why people correlate, money and success to being like this happy, peaceful, calm living life. Like, it's not like that at all. People are delusional when they think that. So, I just want to make her understand that, life is always going to be hard. But it's a good thing, to understand what it's like to fight for something, and to work hard and to have tough times. Those are what really make people appreciate things in life, things that we often take for granted.
So talk to us about that. So then you say it was in 2007? Is that what you said you joined the military?
November 14th, 2007.
Wow. That's my birthday.
No way.
That was my 30th birthday, November 14th, 2007.
That is crazy. Yeah. So I just turned 18 years old. I graduated high school in the spring, and then tried out college for about a month, got the first tuition bill, and realized that I couldn't afford to be there. So I said, what are my options? There's a war going on. Why not join the Marine Corps and see what I can do? And I knew that, I could, even if I didn't like the Marine Corps or I didn't like the military, I could at least tough it out for 4 years and then go back to school. I'd be 22 years old, graduate college at 26. So at 26 years old, at 21, it might seem like I'm behind my peers, but at 26, I'd be well ahead of my peers, because I would have had my experience in the military and a college degree to go on top of that. So either way, it would have played out, to be, it would have been good. So I joined the Marine Corps, did boot camp, went to the School of Infantry, became a mortarman in the infantry, was assigned to 1st Battalion, 8th Marines out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Got there, did my first workup, and got sent to Iraq in 2009. My deployment. At this point, the war in Iraq was pretty much over. Didn't really do much while I was there. Got heavy into lifting weights. I think I left there benching like 450 pounds. Didn't do my job at all when I was there.
Right.
Like, there was no war going on. Okay. And in my mind, and this will all make sense later, but in my mind, I'm thinking, this isn't what I joined the Marine Corps for. Like, I joined the Marine Corps to go to war. You know what I mean? Like, we're wasting all this taxpayer money for me to sit over here, eat 4 meals a day, go to the gym 3 times a day, and go swimming. Like, what am I doing with my life? Now, we'll fast forward really quickly to kind of have this all make sense. Fast forward another year to Afghanistan, and I would never want to wish that on anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I think back to my time in Iraq, and I'm like, well, I wish my Afghanistan deployment was like this.
Right.
Because you don't want to see your friends get hurt. You don't want to see your friends die. You don't want to see innocent women and children get killed and get hurt. Like, nobody wants to see that stuff, but I was wishing for that stuff back in 2009, so it's crazy how things.
You'll be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And, I'm a firm believer that every single thing that happens in your life, good or bad, happens for a reason. I don't know why, I wouldn't think that I'm like a very spiritual person, but that is something that I truly believe in, whether it's good or bad, it happens for a reason. And it's like, maybe that's a way of pushing you away from something or pushing you towards something else. So
were you always that way though? I mean, like when your accident happened in Afghanistan, did you think that way? Like, well, things happen for a reason?
No, not at all. I mean,
I'm sure you'll get to that too, but
yeah. I mean, maybe, I went to Iraq at the time that I did when there was nothing going on, because if I would have went in 04 or 05 when it was crazy, I would have got killed and I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? So like,
that's true.
I think about this stuff now, and then, even when I've talked to people all the time, I meet people and they're like, I was going to go into the military and, I broke my leg and I couldn't get in. And the first thing I tell, like they say, oh, I feel bad, that I couldn't serve my country. And I'm like, you probably broke your leg right before you're about to go in the service, because something was saying that if you would have went overseas, you would have died. You might not have been here. So, take it as a blessing. Like nobody, good on you for wanting to do that, but nobody's mad at you because you didn't serve. You know what I mean? So, just stuff like that. But
it's true. I try to do that on a much, 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 much smaller level. But when the guy or gal's in front of you driving slow and you miss the red lights, it's like, okay, that saved me from an accident probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in the moment, we're not so forgiving. You know what I mean?
Right.
But maybe 10 minutes later, after we calm down and we quit cursing, we think, hey, maybe this happened for a reason.
That's right.
And I feel like as I get older, I tend to be more like understanding with situations like that. As I get older and I get more experience in life, I tend to be more easygoing and things seem to go a lot easier because in my mind I have this like this idea that like people live perfect lives and like nothing goes wrong and everything goes the way, and that's just shit. That's not how, like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Yep.
The sooner you realize that, the more enjoyable and the better off you're going to be.
That's right.
I mean, bad stuff's going to happen. Simple as that.
Well, how you deal with it, right?
Exactly.
So talk to us about that deployment then. You said it was September of 2010. And then, so you weren't there long on this deployment. You were there just a couple months.
Halfway through, in the Marine Corps. And honestly, one of the reasons that I joined the Marine Corps, not because, I was a very athletic and, competitive person, so I felt like the Marine Corps was a good fit for me. But also at the time, the Army was doing like 15 to 18-month deployments. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like to put somebody in an environment for almost 2 years straight, like that's crazy. The Marine Corps, they're, they do 7-month deployments. They do 7 months, in another country and come home. They might be home for a minimum of 6 months before they go back overseas. And I'm like, that sounds about right. Like that would make sense. You hear about these guys committing suicide and all this stuff. I couldn't imagine being in Afghanistan for 2 years straight.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
It'd be crazy. So, I did my workup, got promoted to corporal, became a squad leader. And, at 20 years old, I was in charge of other human beings. Like my sole job was to train them and get them ready to go to war and bring them home safely. So at 20 years old, I had these other lives that I was responsible for. And at the time, you don't think about it. You're thinking, oh, this is the Marine Corps, this is how stuff goes. But now looking back on it, I'm like, that's kind of crazy that
it's a massive responsibility.
They were trusting me with their life, So we did all that, did the workup and got sent to Afghanistan. 60 of us hopped on helicopters and they flew us from this big base in Afghanistan, Camp Leatherneck, into the middle of nowhere in Helmand province and dropped us off and said, hey, walk, it was a couple kilometers this way. And, there's a unit up there that you're going to be relieving. They've been there for, maybe a month or so. The base had just been constructed. It's not 100% done. It's just this, temporary, outpost, no running water, really no electricity, no showers, no bathrooms, none of that stuff. And people don't realize that 2010 in Afghanistan, that's what we had. We didn't have, the common things that you'd think that we would have. So, we set up shop there and, our sole job was to find the Taliban and, push them out of that area and keep the locals safe. The local people, contrary to what people believe, the locals there, 98% of them wanted us there and they hated the Taliban. Like these people are like, they're good people, simple people. They just want to live their life and, be with their family and not have any trouble. And, they don't want to see anybody get killed. They don't want to hurt anybody. They just want to do their own thing, farm and just hang out, And I don't know why, but a lot of people, and it makes me pretty mad sometimes, people over here in our country, they think that like everybody over there is just like horrible.
Right.
And it's quite frankly the exact opposite. Like the way these people are brought up in their culture and how they live their life, like they would, like it's in their code that they would give their life for a complete stranger. Okay. Think about that. Like, I don't know too many people over here that if I was in a situation to where it was my life or their life, that they would give up their life for mine, being that they don't know me and we're complete strangers. You know, I just
doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
But that's like common for them over there. So, you know, once I got over there and I started to meet these people and realize that, you know, these are good people. They don't want the bad here. So our job was to get the bad out of the area and, you know, keep them safe and just make sure that they can keep on doing whatever it is that they're doing with their life. So we got teamed up with like 20 Afghan soldiers. They were great people, hated the Taliban more than we did. They just wanted them gone. They wanted their country back. They were great. They loved us. They would have died for us. They fought right beside us. Never had one issue. They were just amazing people. So, you know, we get set up. We start, you know, running our missions and doing patrols. And, you know, the first time we went out on a patrol, you know, just as our platoon, I'll never forget this. We were constantly getting shot at from this one building. And we decided to, you know, blow up the building. You know, we blow up the building. They can't shoot at us anymore.
That's right.
You know,
seems logical.
Yeah. So we do that. And our battalion wants us to check out the building. And we're like, well, we blew it up. There's nothing there. You know, that's the end of it. And they're like, no, we want you to really go check this place out and see what there is to find, gather any intel, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good stuff. So we got myself, my platoon sergeant, 6 other Marines. We go down to the area and we search the building, don't find anything. And we start walking back to the base and it's getting dark. So we decided to take a shortcut, which was probably not a good idea at the time, but we didn't want to be outside in the dark in Afghanistan. You can't see the ground. Then you really can't see if there's IEDs in the ground. And it just makes everything a million times harder.
Sure.
So our platoon sergeant decided, you know, we're going to take a shortcut. So we do. I remember I'm the 3rd guy in the patrol. Staff Sergeant Silva is the 4th guy in the patrol. And then there's 2 Marines behind him, 2 Marines in front of me. We're walking down this, it's almost like a hallway, but there's like mud walls on each side, courtyards, basically where houses are. And we turn this corner. As soon as we turn the corner, an explosion goes off. And I get kind of pushed like through a wall. And I feel like I get knocked out for, you know, maybe a minute or whatever it is. And I come to, and I stand up and I realize, you know, it wasn't me that stepped on an IED, or was it a mortar round, or what happened, or a grenade. So the dust settles and I start looking around and I realize that Staff Sergeant Silva had stepped on an IED. He's like 6 foot deep in this hole where the explosion was. It had taken his right leg above the knee, you know, stomach is blown open, you know, left arm's hanging there. You know, first time I'd ever experienced anything like this in my life. I'm 20, I think I'm 21 at this time, just turned 21. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, this is real. Like, this is happening, you know, like you don't really think about it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Silva's been in the Marine Corps for almost 20 years. If it's happening to him, it definitely can happen to me.
Right.
You know, like, I'm just some boot compared to him. Like, I've been in the Marine Corps for 20 minutes, you know?
Right.
And I started thinking like, wow, this shit's real. And then, you know, training kicks in, you know, we call for a medevac, we put tourniquets on him, we're talking to him. And one thing that really stuck with me forever was, you know, the whole time that he was laying there, he's talking to us and he's asking us if we're okay. And I'm like, you know,
so he's alive and conscious and knows what's going on at this time.
Oh yeah. And he's like, Rumbaugh, are you okay? Chavis, are you okay? Walker, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, we're good. But, you know, we should be asking you if you're okay. And it showed me how selfless he was. And it's kind of crazy, but at that moment, I thought about my previous 20 years of living and how selfish of a person that I was and how I could not continue to live my life like that. And I felt like everything had happened in my life because of the type of person that I was, because I was selfish, because I didn't always do the right thing, because I was always worried about myself and looking out for myself. And I didn't really take into consideration other people that were around me, and realizing that it was like at that moment that I realized like our purpose in life is to serve other people, not to serve ourselves.
Yep.
And if you do that, guess what? In return, you're going to be taken care of. Simple as that. So, I thought that's kind of crazy. Like, he's about to die. We thought he was going to die. And he's asking us how we are. So, fast forward an hour, it takes about an hour for a helicopter to get to us because we were just so far out there. I pick him up, try to throw him on my back to carry him. And, I'm just this little guy and he's, 6'4", 250 pounds. I carried him as far as I could. We got him on a stretcher, got him to the helicopter takes off. And I remember I'm just like standing there covered in his blood, thinking about what had just happened. And I'm like, this is real life. One wrong step and you're either losing a leg, both your legs, both your arms, or you're losing your life. Like, this is real. How do you prepare for that? And you can't. I mean, there's nothing that you can really do to stop that type of thing from happening because it's just going to happen. It's just a matter of who it's going to happen to and
Sure.
when, So the next 2 months, we're pretty crazy,
So real quick, let me interrupt. So I got to ask, did he survive?
So he did survive.
Awesome.
We didn't hear for about a couple of days until he had made it back because, he was still like in and out. He was going to survive. He wasn't going to survive. He had died. They brought him back, and then he was stable. He wasn't stable, and they really didn't want to tell us anything until they were sure. And basically, they weren't going to be for sure until they got him back to the U.S. They could get him to a hospital that could really truly care for him. So about a week later, they got him back to the U.S. and they were like, "Hey, we think he's going to be all right." And we're like, "Okay, good stuff." And at that point, fast forward, 2 more months to November 29, 2010, when I'd gotten hurt. I'd either been the guy in front of or the guy behind somebody that had stepped on an IED on like 3 or 4 other occasions. So, we had found like 90 IEDs in the first 75 days that we were there. We had Afghan Army soldiers that were stepping on IEDs. It was just, everybody was getting hurt,
Man. And those obviously you can't see anywhere. I mean, there's no like sign of them. There's no like hole that you say, oh, it looks like it's covered up or anything.
I mean, yes and no, but like, we might get into a firefight and, we're running around, we're trying to find cover, we're doing this. The last
You're not
thing,
looking at the ground.
Exactly. So like, if you're looking very, very hard, if you're looking for an IED, chances are you can find them. Okay. But sometimes, they make them, we have metal detectors. And sometimes they make them with very low amounts of metal, and the metal detectors can't pick them up. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's almost like playing the lottery.
And I assume you get comfortable, right? If you're on a 3-mile walk or something, I mean, eventually you kind of get in the motion of just feeling more and more comfortable. Is that true?
Yeah, and it gets to a point to where like if you worry, like you'll kill yourself worrying. You know what I mean? You just got to say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do it. If I get hurt, I get hurt. I mean, it's either gonna happen or it's not gonna happen. So you do your best to avoid it. You try to spot the IEDs. I mean, there's certain signs, certain things that you could pick out. We were pretty good at finding them. We found a lot of IEDs. We stopped a lot of people from stepping on IEDs, but there's a handful of ones that you miss that you can't get. And it just depends. So
now are you guys out on a mission for your deal? I mean, how did your deal happen?
So we were actually we had our base that was on top of a hill, and we had villages on each side. And we had decided to set up a secondary base in one of the villages. So we would rotate sections. So like one section would be up on the hill at the main base, and then another section would be down in the house in the village. So it was my section's turn to go down into the house, and we would stay there for a couple of days and run missions. So we swapped out with the other section, and we had just done our first patrol in the village. We had gotten back. We were debriefing, talking about everything. We sent out a group of Marines to do a security patrol around the building, just to, make sure Taliban weren't putting in IEDs or, doing anything crazy. And within about 10 minutes of that 4 or 5 man team being out, we heard an explosion. Knew what it was. We've heard it so many times. We're sitting by the radio, waiting for a call to come over the radio. It does. Lance Corporal Chavis stepped on an IED. He's missing both of his legs above the knees. We need a medevac. We need support. So we call for a medevac. I grab a team, grab a stretcher. We sprint down to where he was, a couple 100 meters away. And he's inside of kind of like a courtyard, one entry, one exit. And that's when we realized that this attack was very well planned and thought out. Okay. They knew that if they could get somebody to step on an IED, that we wouldn't leave them in there. With one entry and one exit, you know, we have to send somebody in that way to get them to pull out the wounded. So what do you think's coming next? There's probably 10 more IEDs in the general vicinity of the Marine that just got hurt. So they're hoping that we send somebody else in to go get him. We send in the medevac crew, and then they step on an IED. And then we send in the crew to get them, then they step on an IED.
Yeah.
That's basically what they hope to happen. So, you know, as a leader, you have to make a decision. You know, I could have stood on security, waited for the helicopter to land, and sent one of my junior Marines in to, you know, start working on the Marine, get him on a stretcher, get him prepped. But I thought, you know, as a leader, you lead from the front, you know, and, you know, I felt like I had to be that guy to go in. So I grabbed the stretcher and, you know, started walking in towards him, got within about 15 meters of him and stepped on a secondary IED, took my left leg below the knee, you know, right leg at the hip, you know, broke my arm, left arm, collapsed both of my lungs, you know, lost the tip of my trigger finger. My stomach was blown open, just, you know, all sorts of anything you could think that could happen, you know, besides me dying pretty much happened. So I'm laying there. And right when it happened, you know, I try to stand up and I can't stand up. I'm like, oh shit. So at this point I didn't look down yet.
Right.
I try to stand up again. And I'm thinking maybe I'm just like stunned from the concussion. And then I look down and that's when I'm like, oh shit, this is serious. You know, my legs are gone. I'm going to die. What am I going to do? And once again, you know, everything started running through my brain, you know, everything that I had done up to that point in my life and, you know, just the type of person I was. And I wasn't really comfortable with, you know, my life ending the way that it did. And I said, you know, if I make it through this, you know, Brandon's going to be a different person from here on out. And it sucks that it took that, but, you know, sometimes we just need a wake up call. And I guess that was my wake up call and it is what it is. But, you know, talking about, you know, what made me into the man that I am today, you know, losing both of my legs really did that for me. You know, it sucks that it had to be that, but it is what it is, you know. Everybody has their own story, but, you know, it really showed me the type of person I was, the type of person I wasn't, and the type of person that I needed to be and how I needed to get to that point in my life. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this. So, you know, I'm laying there, they start working on me, you know, put tourniquets on me. You know, I can tell from the look in their eyes that they don't think that I'm going to make it.
This is the real deal, yeah.
Yeah. Helicopter lands. They put me and Chavis on stretchers. They throw us on a helicopter, and I pass out and I wake up. But I think it was like maybe 10, 15, 14 days later back in the U.S. So we had went from a hospital in Afghanistan to a hospital in Germany, and then back to Walter Reed where we did our recovery for the next 2 years. Crazy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you for your service and all you've done for our country. It goes without saying. It's amazing what you guys do and the stuff that people like me, man, we get up every day and I get to thank God for people like you literally every day. And we say our prayers with the kids. And that's one of the things we're thankful for, man, is people like you. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And, you know, I like to tell everybody, you know, just like, you know, I don't know what you do for a living, but just like you do your job every day, I was just doing my job. You know, I was getting paid to do a job. It's not like maybe if I was over there volunteering, doing it for free, I would be like, yeah, maybe,
right.
You know, maybe send me a card and say thank you. But you know, I was getting paid to do a job just like you get paid to do a job. But I appreciate it very much.
So, I mean, I have, you know, 1,000 questions that we don't have time for, but we'll just dive into some of these questions. Is like, what is it to the person right now that maybe they're exercising, maybe they're driving down the road and they want to give up on something? I mean, because this could have gone, what you've done with it, I think that's the story, right? That's the inspiring part. Everything before inspiring, during that you even survived inspiring, but I think what you've done afterwards, and again, we don't really know each other, right? But that's the part that inspires me when I see stuff from you every day. And it's amazing to me when you think about people and they want to give up, right? We want to quit. We get tough news at work or at home. What advice would you have for those people?
I mean, for me, the biggest thing, and this is going to sound so crazy because I feel like you might have even been taught this, but I feel like so many of us are taught throughout our whole life not to compare ourselves to other people. I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Yeah, a lot.
I think it's complete BS. Okay. When you're going through something, you know, a divorce, or, you know, the loss of a loved one, or you lost your job, or something. What I do in times like that is I think of other people. I compare my situation to what other people have went through, you know, similar or worse. And I think to myself, you know what? They made it through it. So why can't I? You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
we get so down on ourselves, and, you know, we play this game where it's like, oh, you know, how many times I've said I've done this to myself in the heat of the moment. And I'm sure you have too, where you're like, oh, this would only happen to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
this only happens to me.
Like, of course that's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Like, and in the moment we truly believe that. Okay. We do. I at least I feel like I do. And then I think, like, that was pretty dumb for me to say, because this happens to a lot of people. And regardless of how bad it is, somebody else has went through worse and found a way to get through that adversity and make something of their life.
Yep.
Like me, I lost both of my legs. You know what? That sucks. Sure. It sucks. Life is hard. I have to do things differently. But guess what? I was at the hospital with a guy that lost both of his legs and both of his arms. And he got up every day and went to therapy. And he's living a normal life. He's getting married. He's doing all these things. So what excuses do I have? You know?
Yeah. No, you're right. And by the size of those guns, you could still beat the crap out of me. I mean,
No. Dude, since I started the new business, I've lost like 20 pounds. I go to the gym on the weekends. That's one thing I need to get back into.
Right.
That's one thing I've been struggling with, finding the time, you know?
Exactly. Absolutely.
I tell myself, oh, I don't have the time for it. And then I see some of these guys that are running multi-$100 million a year companies,
Yeah.
and they find time to go to the gym.
That's right.
So I'm trying to figure it out. You know, I'm working. Like this morning, I got up at 5:30 and went for a bike ride this morning, you know, before I went to work. So
right.
It's a start. You know what I mean? It's a start. And we just got to kind of get out there and just start, you know, trying new things and start comparing yourself to other people. Like, how do you know where you stand in life if you don't compare yourself to somebody else?
Well, it's true. I mean, and I just wrote it down here to remind myself, but I compare myself to three things: my past, my peers, and my potential. Yep. Right? Those three P's. And I think that's a big one, is your peers. Like you just said, man, it's, if I know what other wealth management firms are doing, I can compare myself to be a top wealth management firm, right? But if I don't, I just put my head in the sand. I'm never going to know what they do. I'm probably going to hold myself back, which is therefore going to hold our clients back. Yep. And that's not what we're about. So
it doesn't have to be negative. You know what I mean? Like, people think of it as like a negative thing. And it's like, you know what? Like, even if you're comparing yourself to your competitors, even if you're, you know, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for you to maybe reach out to them for advice, or model something that they're doing after what you're trying to do.
Right. Yep.
It's not a bad thing to take bits and pieces from even people that you're competing against. You know what I mean? It shows,
absolutely.
It shows humility, and the fact that you're willing to say, you know what, I'm good at this, but they're really good at this, and this, I'm kind of not really good at this, so I need to work on this, and I'm going to see how they're making it happen, and I'm going to implement that in my life. And that's another thing.
You know, so talk to us about what you've learned about, I would call it perseverance, courage. I mean, my goodness. I mean, you're in the hospital for 2 years. I'm sure all sorts of thoughts, right? I'm sure there was anxiety, maybe there was fear, but how do you learn about perseverance? How do you pick yourself up off the ground and keep going?
You know, once again, for me, it was being at the hospital. You know, for those first 7 months, it was shit. It was the worst time of my life. You know, like, nothing, you know, woe is me. This would only happen to me. Like, God hates me. My life's over. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I'm 21 years old and I'm handicapped in a wheelchair. I'm never going to get married, never going to have kids, never going to do any of these things. You know what I mean? And
those are real thoughts.
just how bad some of these other men and women at the hospital had it, and seeing how they were kind of overcoming it. Because it doesn't matter how successful you are, there is always going to be somebody more successful than you.
Yep.
So you will always, no matter what you do, no matter what industry you're in, no matter how much money you make, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, there is always going to be somebody for you to look up to. So why wouldn't you look up to them? Right. Unless you're just this arrogant person that thinks that, you know what?
Got it all figured out.
Yep. Like, I don't need their help. I don't need to look up to anybody. You know what? I'm only making $50 million a year and he's making 500 because he's a douchebag and he steps on everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's the only way that makes sense. You know, it's ridiculous. And I kind of got out of that, and I realized that, you know what, I need to start looking at the things that I do have and be grateful that I'm still alive, because I should be dead. And
No, that's great.
I need to look at it as a blessing, and almost as like a wake up call. You know what I mean? Like, I've been living the first 21 years of my life the wrong way.
Yeah.
So now I have an opportunity to start clean, to start over, to do things the right way. And I'm still, you know, like, even to this day, like, I get down on myself, you know, like, I always feel like, and this might be, I think it's a blessing in disguise, to where, like, I always feel like I'm never doing enough. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like no matter what I do,
Right.
like, you know what? I worked 16 hours last night. I should have worked 17. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Never good enough.
Never enough. And, you know, my wife gets on me about it. She's like, you know, you do so much. You need to, let yourself, you know, chill a little bit. And, you know, and I get in this thing where it's like, I need to do more. I need to do more. This is never good enough. This is never good enough. And it can be detrimental at times, you know what I mean? But, you know, you just got to find a balance. And that's what I'm working through right now is finding a way to balance everything and understand. My biggest thing is patience. Like, I want everything to happen right now. You know what I mean? Like, I want that $50 million contract right now.
Right.
It just don't work that way.
No.
It just
it
does not work that way. And even, you know, outside of business with life, you know what I mean? Like, what I think is truly going to help me is the birth of our daughter, is realizing that you have to take this little thing and, like, raise it into this, like, respectful, like, honorable, like, you know, contributing member of society. You have to take it from nothing and make this thing into something that is just amazing. And you can't do that overnight with a baby. No. You can't.
And it's a test, man. I'll give you the advice as a father of 4 with a teenager now. It's like, man, it's just, you know, they don't give you a rule book when you leave the hospital. So it's just every day is something new that you continue to do. But it's I always say it's the toughest job in the world, but it's the best job in the world.
Yeah.
By far. So talk to us about that self-talk. I mean, we all, I think most successful people, we all have self-talk. And do you remember a point where, like, you had that defining moment to where the self-talk, and maybe it was 90% negative, 10% positive, how it flipped and maybe why it flipped?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it was like, I think it's hard for us to accept the fact that maybe, like, we're not doing, like, to accept the fact that maybe we're not doing everything that we should be doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy for people to say, you know, to me, like, oh, you know, you lost both your legs, the situation that you have, like, what you're doing right now is enough. You know what I mean? Right. And I think the hard part is for us to accept, like, hey, these people are and I did this, I did that. You know, things will happen as they happen. You know,
Right.
No rush. I don't need to kill myself working and doing all these things and, you know, trying to find every excuse that I could find as to why, you know, maybe I wasn't as successful as I should be at that time.
Yep.
And then I realized that I was just being lazy. You know what I mean? I was just being lazy, you know,
Right.
like, and, you know, sleeping in until, you know, 9:30. My excuse was, well, you know, I was in the hospital for 2 years and I really wasn't on a sleep schedule. You know, they'd wake me up every 2 hours. So that's why I sleep in. No, I sleep in because I'm lazy. You know,
right.
I don't want to, because I don't want to, who wants to wake up at 5 a.m?
Yeah. Nobody.
Right. Nobody. You know what I mean? It's like, I was telling myself that for years. Like, oh, you know, that's just my thing. I'm not a morning person. No, I'm just lazy.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's nobody's a morning person.
Yeah. No, it's very hard to do that. There's no doubt about it. So what would you say Brandon Rumbaugh's strengths are today when you look at all you've been through and the man you are and the man you are becoming, because I think we're always becoming, what are those things?
I think for me, what's helped me tremendously is my openness to like want to learn. You know what I mean? Like, I have no problem admitting right now, more recently, you know, in the last, you know, 6 months to a year, that, you know, I might not know everything, and I'm okay with asking somebody, you know, what the correct answer is, or maybe asking for advice, and realizing that, you know, there really isn't a dumb question to ask. Like, if you truly don't know the answer to something, just ask.
Right.
Like, not everybody knows everything. And it's okay to depend on other people sometimes. You know, just like in business, like in your business, you put people in place around you that maybe are better at things than what you're better at, or you know, they do things better than you do in certain things. And that's how you build a strong business, because there's no possible way for one person to do everything. It's just not,
No.
it's just not how it works. It just can't be that way. I mean, you'll be tapped out eventually.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was just the willingness and the openness to accept that I don't have it all figured out, that I'm never going to have it all figured out, that I'm constantly going to be, you know, relying on people for advice and, you know, guidance. And, you know, even in 20 years down the road, if I made, you know, $5 billion, there's still going to be somebody that I can depend on, or somebody that I can rely on to give me advice to get me to the next level.
Yep.
Always. And it took me a while to realize that. It was like I was afraid to like admit that I didn't have it all figured out. And I'm like, now I know nobody has it all figured out.
Yeah. How much of one of the things I always talk about with people on here is fear. And obviously I would assume you had a lot of fear with what you were going through, but how many of the fears you put in your mind actually blew up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
None of them. I mean, you know, it's crazy. Like what I remember what I just said. I thought that I would never get married.
Right.
Thought that I'd never have kids. Right. Thought that I would never have kids. Thought that I would never have a career.
Yeah.
Thought that I would never, you know, never be able to get up in front of somebody and share my story. You know what I mean?
Even today, I mean, you said it a little bit ago, just very nonchalantly, but then you're like, you went on a bike ride today.
Yeah. At 5:30 in the morning.
Well, but I'm just saying that, you don't have legs, right? And it's like, think of the miracle that you're able to go then on a bike ride.
And it's so crazy. Like today was like the first day that like I've really, because I just got a bike, and, you know, the weather, I use the excuse, the weather's kind of been shit, so I haven't been out.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I finally get out there today, and you don't realize how many people are still asleep at 5:30 in the morning. Like, I thought everybody was up. You know what I mean?
No.
It's
nice when you go through the neighborhood and like every light in the neighborhood is off, right? And you're out making it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just, you know what? It was a good way to like start my day. Like, I was able to listen to a podcast and kind of think about, you know, what to expect for, you know, the day moving forward, and kind of prepare for that. And it was just nice that it's finally, I think I found something that I can do, you know, every morning in a timely manner, and, you know, kind of get my day started in a positive direction.
So what does Brandon Rumbaugh wish he could go back and tell that 21-year-old kid that was laying in bed, scared for his life? What do you wish you could tell that dude now?
To have patience, and not realize, you know, to realize that everything that you do is going to take time, and it's going to take work. You know, nothing is just going to fall into your lap. If you want something, you have to go out there and get it. And, you know, I never in a million years thought that I would own an engineering firm. Not an engineer, you know, I never, and here I am, you know, I own an engineering firm. I have 25 full-time employees, and we're making it work. If that's not proof that anything can happen, if you
don't know what is,
you know, put hard work into it, and, you know, put your effort into it, everything that you have, and put your time into it, then I don't know what else proof that you need, because this shouldn't be happening, and it shouldn't be working, and it shouldn't be possible, but it is.
Yeah. So what are your passions now? I mean, what do you wish you had more time to do that you're really passionate about?
You know, I love going to the gym, and I feel like my lifestyle has just changed so much, like so drastically in the past 2 or 3 months. And I'm still figuring out, you know, my scheduling and all that good stuff. You know, just going to the gym for 2 hours a day, every day, just doesn't happen anymore. You know, that's usually what I was doing, you know, with the baby, you know, that 2 hours of free time that I would have, that I would go to the gym. Now I spend it with my child.
Right.
You know? And, you know, we just got to find ways to make everything work. You know, maybe split it in half, hour at the gym, hour with the baby. You know, I mean, there's compromise. You just gotta figure out what works for your life. And, you know, everybody's going to be different. Not one, like my plan that I have for my life is not going to work for any other person but me.
Yep. No, you're right. That's true.
You know, you take bits and pieces from other people, and you know, implement them into your life. And that can work, but you can't just focus or model yourself after somebody else. It's just not going to work. Everybody has different personalities, different skills, different things that they're just dominant at. So, what I try to tell people is, take bits and pieces from everybody that you meet, good and bad. Even the bad things you can learn from people. So pay attention to that just as much as you pay attention to the good things that people are doing.
That's good. So what advice would you have for the guy or gal listening right now that they need help to bust through that comfort zone? You got any maybe tricks or the trade or anything like that to just do it, just let it rip?
I mean, what I think about is, what are you going to lose? What's on the line? You know what I mean? Like if you want to take that next step, what are you going to lose if you, not if it doesn't work out, but if you don't, try to take that step.
Right.
Like for me, like we're talking about the rest of my life, like my financial freedom, the freedom to spend time with my daughter, as she gets older, to be able to give her opportunities that maybe I didn't have. Am I willing to risk, 3 hours of sleep every night and, my free time on the weekends to be able to give her that life and to give my family that life? Yeah, I am. It's all about, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because we all have to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
You look at some of the most successful people in this world, and I swear all of them have a crazy story. All of them.
Yep.
Like, they started from nothing, or, they started a business and went bankrupt, and then, they had to start all over again. And then they made this, crazy company, and they're doing $500 million a year in revenue. Like, all of us have these crazy stories. You just have to learn not to give up. You know what I mean? I mean, I've one of the guys that I follow very closely, the first 10 years his company was in business, he didn't take a paycheck more than $600. And then in the years 10 to 17, his companies are doing $100 million a year in revenue. So for the first 10 years, you're sleeping in your office, making $600 a paycheck. And then year 11, you're like, oh shit, all this hard work's paying off.
That's right.
Now I'm doing 50 million. Now I'm doing 100 million.
Yeah.
It's the resilience and the understanding. Once again, I know I keep going back to this, but patience.
It's a big one.
One thing that I lack. And I feel like I've lost a lot of, I've been set back quite a bit because of my lack of patience. And I'm learning now that, things take time. You have to put in the work. You have to grind it out. You have to put in the long days. You have to get up early. There's no such thing as not being a morning person.
Right.
You're either lazy or you're not. You just have to get out there and do it.
That's right. I like it. So let's have some fun here. You got to trade places with somebody, and you have to. You can't just say, I want to stay myself because I've learned so much, but you got to trade places with somebody, either that's alive or dead. Who is that person and why?
All right. I would love to trade places with General Mattis.
Mad Dog.
Yep.
Tell me more. Why Mad Dog?
Yeah. I mean, you look at that guy and he just like, if you had no idea who he was and you just saw him randomly somewhere, you would be like, yeah, that's a guy you don't want to mess with.
Right.
Like,
I agree with that.
And he's so smart. Like, not only is he like a warrior, like he's so intelligent. Like, he's just one of the most intelligent people in the world. He's one of the most fierce fighters in the world. Like, he's just all around a great person.
Have you had the privilege to meet him?
I have not. Unfortunately, I have not.
Yeah.
And it's on my list. I mean,
to make that happen.
I know. When I was in the hospital, of course, I went through when Obama was there. So Obama came and saw me a couple of times when I was at the hospital. But, I haven't had the opportunity to meet Trump or, anybody that has worked. But Mattis is probably my all-time number one.
That's cool. So talk to us about that when the president comes in. I mean, what's that like?
I mean, it's crazy. It's everything you think it would be. You know what I mean? They shut down the hospital, shut down the whole floor. Secret Service comes in, and the president comes in, and
they come in first, I'm assuming, and check your room and do all that kind of stuff. Or
yeah, they do all that stuff, and then he'll be in like the next room over, and then his people will come in right before and say, hey, the president's coming in. Anything we need to be worried about or blah, blah, blah. No, we're good. Okay. And then the president will come in, and, every time he came and saw me, we just talked about life. And, I was actually on CNN like 2 years ago and doing a town hall with him. Or no,
Yeah.
3 years ago. What, 3 years ago? Yeah, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Doing a town hall with him, and he actually remembered me from meeting me at the hospital. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
It was like on live TV. It was awesome. Yeah, all
Not
around.
everybody can say that.
Yeah, yeah. Genuine guy, super nice, great person. You know, we don't align politically, but he was a great guy. You know, he's super nice. You could be a good
awesome.
Yeah.
So, any recommendations of books? Anything we need to be reading?
Relentless.
Oh, it's a great book by Tim Grover.
Yep, he's
a phenomenal book. If you haven't, anybody listening to this, I would put it in the top 5 of books I've ever read.
He's an amazing person. I don't think I've ever met anybody that works harder than him.
Yep.
He's like my type of motivation. You know what I mean?
It's just so in your face, the whole book. I mean,
I want somebody to tell me if I'm messing up. Like, I want you to like scream at me, tell me like in the most vulgar way that you can that I'm not doing what I need to be doing.
Right.
That's just, and that's how he is. And it works for some people. Everybody has their own type of, you know, leadership, of you know, mentorship. And that's the type of stuff that I tend to lean towards.
Yeah. Well, anytime somebody like Michael Jordan says he wouldn't be Michael Jordan without Tim Grover, that's a pretty good statement to make.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. So where can our listeners find more of Brandon Rumbaugh? Where are you at?
Instagram at Brandon Rumbaugh. Facebook, just first and last name, Brandon Rumbaugh. You know, if people want to reach out, Instagram's probably the best one. Send a message. You know,
hence, that's why we're here today.
Yeah. I mean, I talk to everybody. You know, I just love meeting new people. Any way that we can, you know, network, reach out, help each other, anything you need, you know, feel free to reach out, ask me any questions. I'm just always up for meeting new people and making new friends.
You're speaking now, man. So, I mean, people looking for a speaker for a great meeting coming up. I mean, they can find you on there, reach out to you on there and have you come in and give a nice little speech, right?
Yeah. And my website is just brandonrumbaugh.com. Just go there. And then my engineering firm is brsolutions.us. Very simple. So brandonrumbaugh.com or brsolutions.us.
I like it, man. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for your time. And like I said earlier, man, thank you for your service and what you did for our country. It's guys like you, man, that take risk every single day and give me and my family the freedoms we have. And we're very thankful for that.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
All right, man.